Okay, so a quick review of the things we had last time. Last time we talked about placemaking, circulation, traffic, pedestrians, and projects. So I'm just going to quickly go through things, but I did add one thing to placemaking. Now, who's familiar with the term placemaking? Does that sound familiar to anybody? I'm going to just, a quick explanation of what placemaking is a destination that is deliberately created, sometimes not deliberately, but it is a destination that people want to go to for what it has to offer, and they want to spend time there. So it's a destination that brings people to an area for some activity or event or for no particular reason at all, other than they just want to experience whatever happens to be there. Okay? So I want to show you some examples of, again, I'm originally from New York City. The images I'm going to show you are from New York City, but I did not take them. These are from the New York City Department of Transportation. But for those of you that don't know, some of the arterials like Winchester or Stevens Creek in New York, they have some like Fifth Avenue, Broadway, the various avenues that go vertically up and down the city, and then they have major streets that horizontally. What New York did, which I found dumbfounding, is they started to take apart some of their major arteries. So think about this. The reason I thought this was relevant is think about this in terms of our major arteries, like Stevens Creek or Winchester, and how this might apply. So this is right off of Columbus Circle, just south of Central Park. This is 7th Avenue going downtown, or actually, I'm sorry, this is Broadway as it starts to wrap around, and they basically took off half of it. And that's not a road diet, that's like, trying to go anorexic on that over here, okay? So they chopped this off. When I started here, they were starting to mess with Broadway, which is basically diagonally cuts Manhattan, bisects it. That's a major thoroughfare. It's one of the heavy used avenues in New York City. So the fact that they were even considering messing with it, I thought it was a joke. And then I went back and visited one day and they started chopping it up. Times Square. So Times Square, this used to be, over here, this used to all be cars. That was an entire thoroughfare. They literally put a pedestrian plaza right smack in the middle of Times Square. Now, who would ever think that stopping car traffic in the middle of New York City with taxi cabs and cars and buses would be a good idea? I thought it was the most ridiculous idea I ever heard. I thought it was a joke. But then when I showed up at 3 in the morning one day, walking home from Penn Station, I walked across Times Square and saw all these tables and chairs in the middle of Times Square. I'm like, I go to one of the cops, I'm like, what's going on here? He goes, yeah, it's some kind of experiment, we don't know. And sure enough, it happened like the prior 3 weeks, they had just set these things up. These are just tables, they're not secured, they're not like bolted to the ground. This is just like someone's backyard. They just decided to make this, but look what it's done. It has created this pedestrian-focused experience to experience what's around them. And that's Times Square, so there's a lot to experience. But they're not, before, can you imagine, this is a corridor of traffic and traffic. This is where 7th Avenue and Broadway come together. It's a major chaotic intersection right there. Very dangerous for bicyclists, very dangerous for pedestrians, especially tourists that are going like this all the time, right? And they walk out in the middle of the street and get hit by a car or a bus. So this is focusing on what can we do here to make this more pedestrian friendly and embrace that. Another example. Before and after. This is over by Macy's, over on where 6th Avenue hits Broadway. Another major intersection on 34th Street, right? Oops. This was cars would go through here. This goes uptown. These are going downtown. You have this crisscross. The lights are weird. The avenues are far apart. But look what they did. They basically chopped it in half, and you just have 6th Avenue going north, and that's it. Broadway is shut down. It is just people. So they've taken a major corridor, a major artery, and basically ignored what it did for vehicular traffic and made it pedestrian focused and created a sense of place for those people. Yeah?
I thought I heard on the previous one with the Times Square shutdown that traffic flow in the general area actually improved a little bit?
It did. I don't have the slide because I didn't want to put too much data on that, but it actually did. Across the board, except for one place on the lower part of Broadway, traffic actually increased by about 2 to 8%, depending on which intersection you looked at.
Increased?
Increased in flow. So not in speed, a little bit of speed, but it allowed traffic to actually flow more smoothly through the intersection and through that area. So it carried actually more traffic effectively through almost half of the corridor. So they measured it in terms of taxi speeds and how fast the taxis got around. So again, this was the placemaking system. So think about how that could apply to our area. We think about, you take any lanes off of Stevens Creek or Winchester, that's just absolute insanity because it will create gridlock and chaos and traffic. And how is that going to affect our quality of life? Well, this is here just to be a little provocative and saying, well, maybe that quality of life actually increases if we slow the cars down, create less vehicular traffic in these areas, and bring that traffic below 25 miles an hour, so they're not racing down Stevens Creek, and making it pedestrian friendly. Think about what happens to the north and south sides of Stevens Creek if you do something like that. Okay, just food for thought. Next thing was circulation. So this one, oh yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, have they noticed any reductions in pedestrian accidents and that sort of thing?
I did not get that level of data. I don't know the answer. It's a good question. But I don't have statistics other than the traffic flow. There was a slide specifically on traffic flow and how that actually, it didn't get impacted, it actually got an improved circulation. Any other questions on that? Yes, sir.
You said that by shutting down some of the lanes in New York, the traffic flow actually improved, which I assume means more cars travel.
Well, I think it would be more cars moving correctly or effectively on the open streets. But I think the overall, it's a throughput issue. So you have more cars getting through, but not necessarily creating the conditions that existed before, where you have contention for intersection, lights changing at the wrong times, or people trying to stop the cars or jump out in front of them. So you have, in this case, just one lane, one direction traffic versus two coming two different ways. So it increased, they measured it by how many miles per hour the taxis went, and they increased between like 2% and 8%. It was all below 20 miles per hour. They weren't like racing down at 30 miles per hour, 40 miles per hour.
There was the other direction of block away.
Well, so New York's a bunch of, it's a grid, right? So Broadway is a unique avenue. It goes at a diagonal. So it's a little bit different. So there's always ways to work around. And the biggest message that I took away from this is whatever capacity you have will be used. So if you have 3 lanes, all 3 lanes will be used. If you have 6 lanes, all 6 lanes will be used. And the path of least resistance, they'll start to branch around and circulate accordingly. Okay? So again, just things to think about. For circulation, we talked about, how can you create different ways to circulate around an area. And this was an example in Vancouver. They actually stripe out and measure what things look like prior to doing that. I don't know how long they leave it on the ground, but it's very clear of what the expectation is for the changes they want to implement to provide better circulation. And obviously, I threw a train in there. That's an autonomous light rail. No drivers, runs very clean. This subway, it's pretty clean. It's not New York. This is in Vancouver. Next one was traffic. This one I think goes without saying about how frightening our traffic is around the areas. You'll recognize some of the intersections, but traffic is one of those things that's near and dear to everybody, and it's everywhere. And the question I would like to suggest is what we have acceptable? Are we comfortable with what this is? And if not, what are we going to do to change that? And I think our growth means more people are going to be here, and maybe more cars, maybe not more cars if we make the right decisions going forward. Because there are ways, I think, around creating more of this. And I think this, to me, is a failed system of just substantial growth without effective planning. And that's just a personal thing. But I think we can change, we can change all these things if we're deliberate about it. If we just kind of sit back and watch it, I think that's where we have that catch-22 on what happens. We kind of just roll the dice. Any other feedback on stuff like that? Last one was some of the pedestrians. Again, this is more looking at creating a pedestrian-centric view on your design. So you focus on what is the person going to experience, what does the person want to do, and then you figure out the other stuff around it to accommodate the people rather than to accommodate the masses that go in those metal boxes. And rather than accommodate that, let's accommodate the people.